It's 7 o'clock. We'll call a meeting of April 9th to order. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs? Lash? Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. First item will be the approval of the minutes of the work session of March 26th.
I move for approval of the work session minutes of March 26th.
I guess I'll second.
Nichols?
Abstain.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Abstain.
Miller?
Yes. Next item will be the approval of regular session of March 26th.
Move for approval.
Second.
Nichols? Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. The next item will be the presentation of our extra large yearly paychecks by Mr. Slagle.
The council serves each year, really out of total appreciation to the community, because this evening we actually present them with their paycheck each year, and it's $1 that each receive for their service to the community. So it is certainly a service out of love to the community than it is of anything else. So, but this evening, Mayor Miller.
Thank you, sir. I'll spend it wisely. But you're not open.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
$10.
What?
I get those on here.
Let me see that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Slagle. Next item is the certification of the general election results. Mr. Slagle?
Council, the official results have been presented by Shelley Harvey, Clerk of Audrain County. So we would need a motion to accept the official general municipal election results as certified by the Clerk of Audrain County.
So moved.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Next item is the oath of office. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Marcy Lee Count, City Clerk, will administer the oath, and I believe, Mr. Mayor, we'll start with you. He has been re-elected for a 3-year term.
I
I, Chris Miller,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
and that I will faithfully demean myself
I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of City Council
in the office of City Council
for the City of Mexico,
for the City of Mexico, Missouri,
for which I was elected on the 3rd day of April,
for which I was elected on the 3rd day of April,
2018.
2018.
Thank you. I, Vicki Briggs,
I, Vicki Briggs,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of City Council
in the office of City Council
for the City of Mexico, Missouri,
for the City of Mexico, Missouri,
for which I was elected on the 3rd day of April, 2018.
for which I was elected on the 3rd day of April, 2018. Just right here.
next item will be the election of the mayor and the chairman pro tem, and we'll turn this over to our council, Mr. Lou Leonardi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Each year, after we swear in the new council members, we then have an election for mayor and then mayor pro tem. So we need to adopt the rules of that election. These have been the rules in the past, and if those are the ones you want to follow, I'll need a motion and a second and then a roll call vote. The council has adopted a policy in the past that a council member should not serve in the same office for more than 2 consecutive terms, that it requires a motion and a second to be nominated for office. If we don't have a majority vote after 3 roll calls, all of the names are put in a hat, and the clerk will draw out the name of the person who's going to take the office. So, yes or no? Those rules,
I make a motion we adopt the rules.
thank you.
Second.
All right, would you call the roll, please?
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Okay, so the first office that we'll hold the election for is the office of mayor. The floor is open for nominations. Takes a nomination and a second.
I'll make a nomination of Chris Miller.
Second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Make a motion, nomination cease.
There's a motion, the nominations cease. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Would you call the roll on the motion that the nominations cease?
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
All right. Then would you please call the roll on the nomination of Chris Miller to serve a 1-year term as mayor of the city of Mexico?
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Now we have the office of mayor pro tem, which is a 1-year term. Are there any nominations for that office?
Nominate Chris Williams.
I can't be nominated. I've had my terms. I'm termed out. I'm term limited. I make a motion we nominate Steve Nichols, though. How about that? I'll just turn it around on you.
I'll second that.
All right. There's a motion and a second for Mr. Nichols. Are there any other nominations?
Nominations cease.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second that the nominations cease. Would you call the roll on the motion that the nominations cease?
Nichols?
Yes.
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Would you then please call the roll on the nomination for Steve Nichols to serve a 1-year term as the mayor pro tem of the city of Mexico?
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Does not increase your pay. But I turn the meeting back over to you.
Says right here it does.
Next item is a public hearing. It's an additional use permit for James and Darlene Spencer to operate a bed and breakfast in their residence at 317 East Love. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. As required by city code, an additional use permit is necessary for change of use for a bed and breakfast at this location to cover the recommendation as presented by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We will turn to Community Development Director Rita Jackson.
This public hearing concerns a request for an additional use permit from James and Darlene Spencer to operate a bed and breakfast in their home located at 317 East Love. A bed and breakfast means a single-family residence where there are guest rooms provided for overnight stay, with breakfast being the only meal served, and where the host resides on the property. This property is located on the north side of East Love Street between North Calhoun to the west and Woodlawn Street to the east. This property is zoned C2 General Commercial. Article 11, Additional Use Regulation, Section 42-678 states, in addition to the building and uses of building and land authorized elsewhere in this chapter, the following building and usage shall be permitted in the various districts pursuant to permit first obtained from the City Council in conformity with Section 42-681 through Section 42-683, 13 bed and breakfast. Section 42-681 of the City of Mexico Codes states that each application received by the city is first reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission for investigation and report as to the effect such building or use will have on traffic, fire hazards, and the character of the neighborhood and the general welfare of the community. A report and recommendation shall be filed with city councils. Notices were sent to 35 surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the request. It has been a policy of the City of Mexico, anytime there is a request for an annexation, for zoning, rezoning, alley vacation, and additional use permit, the property owners within 185 feet are notified of that request. With this particular request, 35 property owners received the notification. And in your packet, basically, that notification just states to the property owners that the city has received this request, and it gives them the date, time, and location of that meeting. And if they have an opinion in support or opposition, they can do that by attending the meeting or verbal communication. On March 6, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission met to consider the request and made a recommendation of approval to City Council. The minutes of that meeting are attached. City Code requires that City Council conduct a public hearing to make a determination of whether the applied for use will, number one, substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, number two, substantially increase fire hazards, number three, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, number four, adversely affect the general welfare of the community, number five, overtax public utilities. If the council findings are negative to all of the above, then the application shall be granted. If the findings are affirmative as to any of the above, then the permit shall be denied. Approval or denial of the permit is done in the form of a motion. Staff recommends that City Council conduct the advertised public hearing and make a motion to grant approval or denial of the additional use permit request for James and Darlene Spencer to operate a bed and breakfast at their residence at 317 East Love. And in the audience, we do have Mrs. Spencer here tonight for additional questions.
Anybody have questions for Rita? If not, this is a public hearing. If you'd like to make a comment, we'd ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and try to hold your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Slagle, do you have any comments for this?
Do not. We did not, did we?
I make a motion.
Your Honor, one moment, please. I think a moment of protocol here. I do not believe we had a motion to actually open the public hearing to begin with, so I think we just declared it open, so.
I declared it open. Vote for us.
So I have a motion.
You need a motion to open.
We need a motion to originally open.
Steve, you make the motion to open it. I will make a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call. Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Now, Your Honor, would you like us to repeat the whole information or let it stand in the record?
I think we'll let it stand if that suits everybody here, and I apologize for my tardiness in the motion. And we're now, again, let's say we're open to the public. Does the public have anything they would like to say? Not? It's pleasure to the board.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Then you would need a motion to...
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the Baker bed and breakfast.
Second.
A motion to approve the bed and breakfast
As recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
I have a question. Just a point of order. All motions have to be in the positive, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you can vote against them, but they have to be in the positive to start with.
Correct.
His motion was to approve the
Approve the
Additional.
additional use permit per the planning and zoning
Zoning Commission.
recommendation. Yes.
And I have a second from Councilmember Shivers, so I will do the roll call. Nichols?
yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Okay, I need a motion to open a second public hearing.
Make a motion.
He did it, I'll second it.
Nichols?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Okay, item B is an additional use permit for JetUp LLC to construct a commercial storage unit on their property at 913 East Holt. Mr. Schleck.
Yes, Your Honor. In this public hearing, for note that this request did not receive an affirmative vote from the Planning and Zoning Commission or recommendation for approval. Therefore, the applicant did make an appeal to City Council, and therefore this record will be recorded by a court reporter as part of to make sure we have an accurate record if there is an appeal by any party, therefore following this to circuit court.
Okay. Mr. Leonardi.
Just to, thank you, to explain the procedure and a couple of things we're going to do. This is what is referred to as a contested case under the Missouri Administrative Procedure Act, so we have to have a record if someone would like to appeal. Mr. Wells is an official court reporter, was the official court reporter for Judge Clayton up in Hannibal, now is a freelancer. And he's just driven down from Lancaster, Missouri, where he did depositions all day. So we need one person speaking at a time. And if you go real fast, he'll ask you to slow down because he takes down everything. There will be some exhibits marked, and I will keep track of those. First, we'll have a presentation by Rita Jackson, the Director of Community Development, with regard to the action taken by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then Trenton and Jordan Vaughn. They're appealing the decision. They'll make a presentation. Their presentation will be about 5 or 6 minutes. You may, at the end of the presentation, if you would like to ask them questions, you may. And then we'll open it for public comment. If anyone from the public wants to comment, we need for you to come up, state your name and your address, whether you are for or against the application for the additional use permit, and state your reasons why. And if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes, we would appreciate that very much. So, yes, ma'am.
If you have exhibits, can you also share it with the...
Yes, we will. And if you have an exhibit, if you'll give them to me ahead of time, I'll get them marked. We use letters.
Yes, I have them marked already.
Okay, all right. Well, we already have A through D, so we'll start yours with E.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. So, questions about procedure? Then the final vote would be the motion would be to accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you vote to accept it, that means the additional use permit would be denied. because that's the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you vote no, then you would be voting to grant the additional use permit. That's the way the city code reads, so that's the way we have to follow it. The criteria for an additional use permit is in section 42-678 of the Mexico City Code.
Lou, could you state that thing about the vote again?
Sure. You're voting to accept or reject the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to deny the application for the additional use permit. So if you vote to accept it, you are denying the application for the additional use permit. Okay? Questions? All right. We have marked 2 exhibits. Exhibit A that we'll introduce is a written letter from Vicki Pasley, an attorney in Chicago, Illinois, who represents one of the property owners, a relative of one of the property owners. That is Exhibit A, and I think you all have a copy of that in your packet. Then Exhibit B, as in boy, is a copy of all the written information provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there were some written objections filed that were part of the Planning and Zoning Commission proceeding, and those are all together, and we've marked those as Exhibit B. Jordan has Exhibits C and D, which are photographs, and she'll explain those to you. And while that's going on, I'll walk back here and get the other exhibits. Okay, questions? I'll turn it over to Rita.
This public hearing concerns a request for an additional use permit from JetUp LLC, Trenton and Jordan Vaughn, to construct commercial storage units on their property located at 913 East Holt. Commercial storage units is an industry in which storage space such as rooms, lockers, containers, and/or outdoor is rented to tenants, usually on a short-term basis, often month to month. The property is located on the north side of East Holt Street between South Johnson Street to the west and Green Boulevard to the east. This property is zoned C2 General Commercial. The Vaughns purchased the property in January 2018, and the single-family dwelling located on the property was demolished by the City of Mexico March 2018. Article 11, Additional Use Regulations, Section 42-678, states, in addition to the building and uses of buildings and land authorized elsewhere in this chapter, the following building and uses shall be permitted in the various districts pursuant to permit first obtained from the City Council in conformity with Section 42-681 through Section 42-683, 14 commercial storage units. Section 42-681 of the City of Mexico Code states that each such application received by the city is first reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission for investigation and report as to the effect such a building or use will have upon traffic, fire hazard, and the character of the neighborhood and the general welfare of the community. A report and recommendation shall be filed with City Council. As stated previously, anytime we receive requests for additional use, zoning, rezoning, alley vacation, and annexation, city policy is to notify the property owners within 185 feet of the request. Notices were sent to 13 surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the request. City staff, this is at the time of before the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, city staff received 1 telephone call, 1 office visit, 7 petitions, and 1 written correspondence, all in objection of the commercial storage units being constructed at 913 East Holt. 2 additional petitions were received from individuals not within 185 feet of the request. On March 6, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission met to consider this request and made a recommendation of denial to the City Council. After the vote, Chairman Vaughn stated, Chairman Finland stated that the additional use permits need to be examined on a case-by-case basis. A majority of the commissioners voted to deny the request. She stated it's a negative, it's a neighborhood, and personal to the property owners that reside in that neighborhood. The minutes of that meeting are attached. On March 20, 2018, the City of Mexico received a request from Trenton Vaughn, Jetup, LLC owner, to be heard in front of the City Council regarding their request to construct commercial storage units at 913 East Holt. A notice of the public hearing to consider an additional use permit was advertised in the Mexico Ledger on Thursday, March 22nd and Thursday, March 29, 2018. Notices were sent to the 13 surrounding property owners within 185 feet. The city received 2 written correspondence from the property owners within 185 feet and 1 from a property owner not within 185 feet, all in opposition of the request. City Code requires that City Council conduct a public hearing to make a determination of whether the additional use permit will, number 1, substantially increase traffic hazard or congestion. Number 2, substantially increase fire hazards. Number 3, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. Number 4, adversely affect the general welfare of the community. Number 5, overtax public utilities. If the council findings are negative to all of the above, then the application will be granted. If the findings are affirmative as to any of the above, then the permit shall be denied. Approval or denial of the permit is done in the form of a motion. Staff recommends that City Council conduct the advertised public hearing and make a motion to grant approval or denial of the request for the additional use permit for Jetup LLC to construct commercial storage units at 913 East Holt.
Thank you.
Take a break for just a second. Well, that's one thing I forgot to mention. If you have a cell phone, put it on silent. It's like church.
Reminder. That was a good timing.
So Jordan, if you would tell them who you are and your address, and we'll get started.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to say that my husband and I really appreciate your consideration today. My name is Jordan Vaughn. I'm co-owner of Jetup LLC, and my address is 713 Anaconda Court in Columbia, Missouri. And so as Rita mentioned previously, we bought the 913 East Holt property with an abandoned, dilapidated house in January. Because the house was beyond repair, the City of Mexico agreed to demolish the house, and the demolition is now mostly complete. We would like to place storage units on the lot now, and therefore are requesting an additional use permit from the City of Mexico. So in the Planning and Zoning Committee, we talked about possibly 10 units on the lot, but now after more carefully considering the size of the lot and the plans, we're actually thinking about 7 units on the lot. The materials for the units and the labor used to construct the units will be that of other small business owners in Mexico. I would like to introduce Exhibit D, and this is just a picture showing a similar storage unit facility adjacent to several well-kept houses here in Mexico, and our units will look similar to this, constructed with the same materials, same company providing it. The only difference in our units is that our units will actually be completely toward the back of the lot, so the front of the lot will be empty, and there will be privacy fences on either side of the lot. So that would be the difference between this picture and ours. Did you want up here? Okay.
Why don't you give it a second?
Okay.
Back in the salad.
Okay.
Marcy,
Ready?
give that back to the reporter.
So members of the community have stated that the storage units would intrude on their family neighborhood. However, from extensive broad view planning, the property was zoned C2 commercial by the City of Mexico, allowing for business development in the area. As I'm sure you understand, without an additional use permit, we can put any of the things listed in either residential, C1, or C2 zoned areas. This includes an apartment, a laundromat, a gas station, a pool hall, to name a few, without the additional use permit. Additionally, there are many other businesses in the immediately surrounding area, including a fast food restaurant, a wellness spa, and even a hotel. Also, ADM, churches, and a handy shop in the immediately surrounding area. Without first fully understanding our plans for the storage unit, letters were submitted to the city by surrounding property owners, which have confused the issue at hand and contain multiple falsities, not only about my husband and I personally, but also falsities about storage units, additional use permits, and the whole area, Holt Street area in question. I'd be happy to discuss any of these untruths in more detail, but for now, I'd really like to stick to the issue at hand and City Ordinance Section 42683. As discussed in our previous letter to the city, there are 5 criteria in that ordinance which the City Council must base its decision to provide an additional use permit, so I would like to address each one in turn. The first is that storage units will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. So I'd like to introduce Exhibit C now. This is a picture of what Holt Street looks like on a typical day. So admitted by many of the neighbors in their letters submitted to the city, ADM and other surrounding businesses create traffic currently on Holt Street, proving this is hardly a residential-only neighborhood that will be destroyed by erecting 7 or even 10 storage units. For example, with 7 units on the property, even if each tenant accesses their unit once a week, that's only 1 additional car per day on Holt Street. Even doubling this, it's 2 cars per day for the storage units. We will have parking within the lot. That was my 30 seconds.
That's your 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so even doubling this, it's only 2 cars per day for the storage units, and they'll be parking within the lot, so cars will not be parked on the curb, remaining on the curb while people are accessing their units. If this was a rental home or any of the other businesses mentioned, traffic would be substantially higher than 1 car per day. So the second criteria is a fire hazard, but I think that is sort of a non-issue in the interest of time. I'd be happy to answer more questions about that if necessary. The third criteria is that the storage units cannot adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. So old abandoned houses adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. With other businesses already in the area, storage units enclosed by fences in no way adversely affect the area. As admitted by several of the letters from surrounding property owners, nearby properties have been raided for drugs many times in the recent past. Our storage units will be cleaning up the old abandoned houses and placing a new, well-maintained business. Again, the city, in its extensive planning and development, designed this area to be zoned commercial. A commercial business was what the city had in mind when it zoned Holt Street for the benefit of the entire town of Mexico. Storage units would have no adverse effects on the welfare of the surrounding community. Again, many businesses are already in the area, and 7 to 10 storage units create no negative change. The fourth criteria is that units cannot adversely affect the general welfare of the community. Many of the same points that I just stressed apply in this criteria as well. So my husband was also a resident of Holt Street at birth and has lived in 2 homes on the street. As an avid volunteer in the community and someone who works daily in Mexico, we understand the importance of general welfare of the Mexico community. Additionally, my husband and I currently own 5 rental properties in Mexico, of which we diligently pay taxes and utilities to the city, and where we also fully vet our renters. We know the benefits of having upstanding renters and would not allow anything else of our storage unit tenants. It does a disservice both to ourselves and the community to have crime or any of that such in the units. Storage units are not proven to be crime infested, and once again, the property is zoned commercial for a commercial business. The 5th criteria is overtaxing public utilities, but I see this as a non-issue as well. Again, in the interest of time, I'd be happy to answer questions later. So in summary, the area in question in and around Holt Street is hardly residential-only family neighborhood. The city chose to zone this area as a commercial, and businesses are already in the area. ADM, Sonic, Pure Skin and Wellness Spa, the Budget Inn, the Handy Shop, and 2 churches, to name a few. As property owners on Holt Street and members of the community, my husband and I have heard the concerns of surrounding neighbors regarding traffic and safety, and have taken measures in our planned design to accommodate for these worries and far surpass the criteria required by Mexico Ordinance 42-683 in this commercially zoned area. We hope you will grant us our additional use permit request, and thank you again for your time and consideration today. And I appreciate the additional time as well. So are there questions for me, or should we open it up to the floor first?
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm new, so I'm obviously brand new on the council. I've read these codes, and were you informed before you did this about the codes about the neighborhood, the one that about the neighborhoods having a say in this? I mean, were you aware of that?
That's a good question. So when we before we purchased the property, we actually approached the city to discuss our plan for storage units, and we're told that, all you need to do is come in and get the plan approved, that kind of thing. This was in December. So based on that information, we bought the house in January, and we're working on getting the easement signed for the Holt Street easement sign, and we also worked on getting the house demolished, and then actually submitted our plans for the storage units 2 days after the ordinance changed for the additional use permit. So 2 days before we submitted or came in to talk about our plans, the ordinance actually changed. So once we did find out that we had to go through this process, the city did make us aware that they would be sending out letters to the surrounding community members. Does that answer your question?
But you were aware before you were aware that the code had changed, or what you're telling me is the code had changed, and you were aware of that, right?
We were not aware when we purchased the property. The code wasn't changed when we purchased the property. We were aware that at some point in the near future it was changing, but we were never given the date or the exact plans of this change. Does that answer the question?
Mr. Slager, I have a question to you that might pertain to that. I was thinking that the city did not demolish property for the benefit of business, and this kind of questions me as to why we demolished the house so that business could start in that location.
Our program for dangerous and dilapidated homes applies in almost in any situation. But as far as demolishing commercial structures and so on is where we draw the line at.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one more question. I don't mean to be the chatterbox up here for the first time around. I read through all of this, and you're saying here that you're going to build 7 units.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you went to the Planning and Zoning Committee, you talked about 10 small units.
Yes, ma'am.
Or, no, I've got it backwards. I think when you went to the...
It was 10. We were talking about 10 there. We're thinking 7 to 10 now. We'd really like to start small.
But you said, and you said at one point, I think in the planning zoning, that 10 now, maybe more later. I mean, that's what I have from the planning zoning notes. Is that true?
Yeah, there's absolutely a potential to
And
much later in the future, but
Right, and then you wrote a letter to the city, and you said 10, and now you're saying 7.
7 to 10, yes, ma'am. So we were originally thinking 10, but we're thinking now we want to make them a little bit larger, so they would still be in the same, if I can step up here really quickly, they'll still be in the same, so this is the lot, this is Holt Street, how you access the lot, and they would still be just along the back side here. So we are not thinking about going down the sides right now, just basically on the very back of the lot, and then there'll be privacy fences. Well, there's already one here from the business that is right here, but there will be privacy fences there and there as well.
I actually went out and saw the lot Saturday, and I was sort of struck by how really small the lot is. And also when you look around, I mean, you've got homes, obviously, that people, and they're nice, well-kept homes, and they're the neighbors, and then I compared those to who were concerned about this, the ones that had turned in things. So it gave me an idea of what the surrounding neighborhood was thinking. So I can see then what the neighborhood is, if you stand there, what you're seeing with the neighborhood and then with the lot. So that's why I'm asking these questions, and because and when the code says, that the neighborhood has to be asked about it, I really think that's a good part of the code that has been introduced. So anyway.
I have a question for our building inspector's not here. It appears to me there's a garage right on the line. So what is the ordinance as far as putting a storage unit next to that line as far as fire hazard? It seems to me it has to be...
It has to be, you do have...
This is Rita Jackson, the Director of Community Development, for the purposes of the record. She's responding to the question.
You do, in all areas, you have districts, you have setback requirements. So if the permit was issued, it would have a setback, it would have to be so many feet off of the property line in order to be constructed.
And as far as your comment a while ago about fire hazards, I think we've had 4 storage units fired in Mexico in the last 2 years.
I'm sorry, sir, I have a hard time.
Oh, okay. I'm Steve Nichols. Her comment about no fire hazards, Mexico has had 3 or 4 storage unit fires in the last 2 years. So they do catch fire.
I apologize. I didn't mean to seem like they never catch fire. There will be no electrical. We're not planning on any electrical to these units. As far as increasing fire hazards for anything else that you would put there, I think it would be a wash.
There is no electric at the other ones, is there?
No.
It was kind of maybe drug-related, sort of.
Well, let's not speculate.
Maybe. I said, okay. There was a fire there. Any other questions for her?
No.
We thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough. And now we're open for more public comments. If anybody would like to come to the podium, please state their name and address and try to hold their comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vicki Pasley. I understand that you have my letter in your packet. I also have additional exhibits as well. I do want to make a correction. I think on the letter you may have had, there was a mistake as far as the address. It's 913 East Hope, which is a storage area, which of course we know. Turning your attention to your code, and I look at it with specificity, I think we already know it's Section 42683. And it says, if the City Council's findings are negative as to all of the subjects referred to in the sections 1 through 5, then the application shall be granted. If the findings are affirmative as to any such subject, so give me one, then the permit shall be denied. I stand here today and I'm really, somewhere between frustrated and furious that someone from Columbia, Missouri can give you a picture of a typical day on Holt Street. They don't live there. They haven't paid taxes there. We have people on that area that have been there since 1953. There is no way they could know what a typical day was on Holt Street. They came in and they bought some property for gain. They don't know where the neighborhood is. If you look at Exhibit E, they weren't even decent enough to clean up the demolition after they did it. So my property that I personally owned is 404 East Bass. Looking out that bedroom, I'm going to look at this, where there's still debris and still all kinds of disrepair. And so I've always believed that present behavior is a good predictor of future behavior. So if in fact you have these so-called units there, and people come in, and we all know from storage units, people aren't going to come in once a week. They're going to come in whenever they need to come in. They're going to be moving in, moving out. And if there's garbage and debris, the people that are in front of that area, such as my property and the property that I partially own in 909 East Holt, while they're eating their dinner, they're looking at this and looking at people go in and out. And the property at 916 East Holt, directly across, right across, they're looking at that. That's not conducive for the neighborhood. There's no way that there could be a benefit for the neighborhood. So to say that you can take one picture and give a typical day on Holt Street is an insult. It's a total insult. I'm proud to be a one-time resident of that area. My parents still live there as elders. We have a lot of the other elders that have been taxpayers for years. Not that they have some rentals sprinkled around and they pay their taxes in Boone County. No, they're taxpayers in Mexico, Missouri, and have been the backbone of that neighborhood. And it's a neighborhood. Bass Street, where my property is located, was named for Thomas Bass, the first black equestrian. So the area is rich in history and legacy, and it's important to us. There are no abandoned buildings there. Another insult. You don't know the area. There's a drug activity there, which is there's a lot of synergy that now we can have a storage area and the drug people can walk right 10 feet over and put their stuff in the storage area. That's not conducive to this neighborhood where people have retired, where people are raising children, where people have sent kids to prom. It's a tight-knit community where everybody watches for each other. Nothing looks like what they have now. And one minute they're going to have 7 units, then they're going to have 10 units, then we're going to expand. Oh my goodness. The commercial area in that area is a Sonic that faces Liberty, and there's also a spa that faces Green Boulevard. All busy streets. There are no commercial entities facing Holt Street. Holt Street is a community. And to say that it's not, and that there's some community in Mexico, which I have done my research, I have not found it, so this looks like disparate treatment to me. There is no place in Mexico where there are storage units smack dab in a residential area such as a Holt Street area. So I would love to know where this is that they're talking about.
30 seconds.
Okay. To say that the traffic will not be increased is ludicrous. No one is going to come to a storage area one time. You've got ADM that lines up the streets. People have to deal with it. You have people trying to get to and from. I gave it was a garage sale at 404. That backed up the traffic in the area. So to put a storage unit where you have all of these people come in, that's remarkable, and that's not realistic. It's going to make that area something, and then you have all these people coming from other areas that you don't even know who they are. These people don't know who we are. So how are they going to know who's going to come into this area? I think when you're looking at this, you have to look at the general welfare of the community. And there's no benefit whatsoever for these storage units to be there. There's drug activity that's going to be enhanced by having a storage unit. The elephant in the room is that nothing has been done about that. There have been 3 raids since the first of the year. Now we have somebody that wants to put a unit there where people can do the math, do whatever it is they do in the house, and increase the fire hazards and all the other hazards in that community area.
Can we finish up, please?
Okay. I have just a little bit more.
Yeah, these exhibits that you need to introduce.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have some exhibits that I want to introduce. I don't think that there's a storage area on any of the other streets, such as Osage, Kentucky, Teal Road, Ozark. You're not talking about putting a storage area there. You're not talking about running different people from other areas there. If you look at my exhibits, the Exhibit A shows just how disrespectful they were of the area and how they left it there. E.
Exhibit A is now
Exhibit E, okay.
F.
And F shows the proximity of my property at 404 Bass, where I'm looking directly at the area across the street. And G shows the 909 property, and the proximity is right next door to this storage facility. So in closing, there appears to be an attitude that anything goes in certain areas. I don't think that's Mexico. I've lived here all my life. And I believe that there has to be consideration for the people that live there and that worked and dedicated their lives there to make their property well-groomed, well-manicured homes. And to put this kind of entity in our area destroys all of that. Plus, it smacks of disparate treatment. I mean, Title VI of HUD prevents that. So you can't put certain facilities in certain areas and not in other areas. There can't be inequity. And so if in fact there is something that we need to do as a community, we will do it to work very, very hard and very strenuously and very aggressively to make sure that this facility does not come into our area. Thank you.
Can we see your exhibits, please?
Yes.
I need you to leave me.
Redo them?
No, I need you to give those to the reporter and then hand the packages out to the council. Thank you. I'll be glad
Excuse me, Madam Clerk.
And then for the record, you are against the granting of the...
Absolutely, unequivocally, yes, I am against it.
Fine. That's what we need to know when we come up to...
Vehemently.
Whether you are, thank you, whether you are for it or against it, okay?
So your other people that would like to speak, we ask them to come to the podium, state their name and address, and try to hold it to 3 minutes, please.
Robert Pasley, 824 East Holt. I have been living there since 1953. I checked around all over the city and looked at different storage units. I found 1,000 better units, and none of them are in a residential area. I can't believe anybody would want to put a storage unit in a residential area. I'm definitely against it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to come and speak? We ask you to state your name and address and try to hold it to 3 minutes.
I'm Nancy Gould, 827 East Lafayette, here in Mexico. I do not live within the 185 feet of the 913 East Hope property, but I can stand and look out my front door, and that's the view that I would see would be the storage units. I really would hate to think that the pride of the neighborhood is going to come to this. I have lived at my residence for the last 29 years, and I have taken pride in keeping my home up. As been stated over and over again about the drugs, the ADM meal traffic, I just don't feel that we need anything extra. And my another question would be, how much just one neighborhood supposed to go through? Nobody can speak for the pride of the neighborhood, but the people in the neighborhood and in the surrounding areas. I consider everybody on Holt Street, Lafayette Street, my community ever since I've moved there. I thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
And you do have a copy of my denial protest letter in your packet.
We do.
Thank you very much.
Someone else like to speak? We ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and try to hold your comments to 3 minutes. If there's no one else to speak, I ask that the public hearing be closed.
Just 1 sec. We do have one other exhibit that we need to mark. The exhibit.
Sure.
This is a letter from Sandra Johnson, who was unable to attend tonight, wanted her letter to be part of the record. And I would ask Rita Jackson if she would address the council again to explain the change in the code and the current condition of the lot and some of the responsibility the city has with regard to cleaning up the lot, so you're clear on that. Rita?
Is that in Exhibit H?
Yes.
Do I need to read this? She asked that
No, I
did read it.
put it in the record. That's like, it's in the record.
The City of Mexico Code was changed February 12th, and the City of Mexico we actually updated our comprehensive plan probably 3 years ago, and one of the things that we heard was the fact that on commercial storage units, the public was not happy with the ones that are actually in place. They talked about the traffic at night and the people coming and going. So one of the things that city staff looked at, we listened to what the people said, so we actually put storage units under the additional use code, because storage units were listed no place else in a city code. So it was actually something that you would have to actually, if they were constructed in areas that were C2, general commercial, but what you have with some of your codes, which are residential type areas, is that your code came in once some of the neighborhoods were already set up. So it was not like any of the places where we actually have storage units at right now. We did not individually go and make those C2. They were actually already in place with the neighborhoods when the codes were adopted. So that's how you sometimes get the ones into the C2 areas, meaning to residential areas. The codes were there actually, and in our comprehensive plan, we were trying to address it so that they can go into neighborhoods where that they would be more user-friendly, because we have received lots of backlashes from the areas that currently have them where there are residents. And I would like to say that on 913 East Holt, the junk, trash, and debris that is left there, the city is not finished cleaning up the demolition that they started in March because of the weather. But we do plan to get that taken care of.
Sure.
Rita?
Yes.
I'm just to clarify things, since this is my first session. Would you explain how this code change was addressed, how it was addressed to them?
Mr. Vaughn came to us probably late December, January, regarding our demolition program. He was going to acquire the property at 913 East Holt at the time, and he had wanted to know how our program worked. And he was informed that our codes were changing and that you would need an additional use permit to actually be able to put the storage units there. And our building inspector, Steve Redmond, had actually worked with you also because the permit would be issued through him. And I
got a question. I was informed. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can.
And what I had informed Steve Redmond, because he would be the person actually issuing the code and working with it, to make sure that you inform him that our codes are changing and that you would need an additional use permit to actually be able to. No, I did not tell him that it would be opposition or how, because that's through the planning and zoning, how that is going to be approved or denied. So, but he was aware of the fact that we were going to change our codes.
Okay. And
by both me and the building inspector.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Vaughn, if you want to respond to that, you need to come up to the podium. Give your name and address.
Hello, I'm Trenton Vaughn. I guess I'm the part owner of 913 East Holt. I'd like to explain that a little bit more. I was told about the potential change in the code, but I was also told that if I get my plans in before the code change, that I wouldn't have to worry about that, from my understanding, as far as the additional use permit. If I would have got my plans in before the code changed, then I wouldn't have to worry about the additional use permit.
Right, that is true, because it wasn't under that part after, but it came in after the code was changed.
You're saying the plans came after the code change?
We received the plan 2 days after the codes were changed.
I was never informed a date, I guess, that it was going to take place. They did tell me that it was going to change, but I was never informed a date.
Mr. Reed, your question?
So, I have a comment and question. Okay, I was elected to this board 9 years ago. One of my priorities when I got on here, and you guys can attest to this, was Holt Street, because those houses on that street were disgusting. Where Cincy's is now, that house was a drug house. It was a homeless. It was disgusting. We have improved that greatly. The house is gone. That took a lot of work by Lou to get that. It did. That's why he's laughing. He's like, yep. So my question is, so I know about that house. How did this house, another house that was in pretty bad shape, how did that end up getting there, and how did they acquire that house? How did this whole process work? Because
can I address how city code works on dilapidated houses? On dilapidated houses, what the city does is we actually look at the exterior of houses, and then we actually go on complaints. So from the outside of the house, it was nothing structurally that said that we needed to demolish that house. And my understanding is correct. I'm thinking that the individual that lived there passed within the last year or so, so it was actually someone actually residing in the house, and it probably stayed vacant probably for a year or less, and then it was sold.
so it wasn't the same as the blue house that used to be there.
No, this was a house that we had not received any complaints on as far as the exterior of it. I'm not going to say the inside might have been dilapidated, but we had not received any complaints or seen anything on the exterior that said we needed to demolish it.
So it was just put up for sale? I guess did we do something in this, or did...
It was actually put up for sale. I don't know.
Just somebody put it up for sale?
Actually, I think the son of the the person that lived there put it up for sale.
I just wanted to check because we had so many problems. I don't know about that house. That's why I'm asking, but I know about the house where Cincy's is now. That house was a disaster and took a lot of work and a lot of time. And I just didn't know if this was a similar situation. So I appreciate that.
Other questions? Rita?
Yes, I have a question for Rita.
Please come to the podium. State your name again, please.
Robert Ashley. Someone was talking about the drug house. That was not a drug house. The drug house was next to me. They've been raided 3 times in the past year, and it's still there, and it's still operating. But that's where the drug house is. It's 812 East Holt.
Okay, thank you.
Rita, was the house they tore down the old Ford house?
No, not the 913 East Holt is not the Horde House, no.
Other questions? If none, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Now we need a motion to,
Just to remind you.
yeah, say it again.
Sure. Under the city ordinance, you vote to either accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you accept that, that would be a denial of the application for a special use permit based on the grounds found by Planning and Zoning. If you vote no on that motion, then you're voting to grant the special use permit and override the recommendation of Planning and Zoning. Okay, so if you vote yes, upholds the recommendation to not issue the permit. You vote no, it overrides the recommendation and the additional use permit is granted. Okay.
I make a motion to approve the building and planning recommendation.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Next item on the agenda would be new business resolution reading in title by title only and passage bill number 2016-26, authorizing the city manager to sign a healthcare service agreement with SSM St. Mary's Hospital, Audrain. Mr. Schleckles.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We were contacted by Donna Jacobs, Chief Executive of SSM Health St. Mary's in Audrain, in support of implementing a drug discount or prescription discount program. SSM Health Hospital desires to participate in this Section 340B of the Public Health Services Act. And in order for SSM Audrain to participate in the program, they must enter into an agreement with the City of Mexico and agree to provide health services to low-income individuals without Medicare or Medicaid benefits. Should SSM Health Audrain receive the funding through the 340B Health Services Act, it will then join the Arthur Center Health Community Health to be a qualified 340B program. At this time, Donna Jacobs is here to make some comments regarding it, and if council, then I'll provide our recommendation after they've provided comments. So, Donna?
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Donna Jacobs, the president of SSM Health St. Mary's Audrain. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening and be able to field any questions that the council may have. Joining me this evening is our regional pharmacy director, Mr. Robert Ritchie. So he is very well versed in having implemented this program in Southern Illinois region. So we want to at least share with you it is our desire to be able to continue to deliver the services for our uninsured and underinsured. Having the opportunity to participate in the 340B program certainly lends additional resources to our facility to be able to continue delivering that. So I would like Rob to be able to speak a little bit more to this specificity of the program, please.
Thank you for hearing us. The 340B program, if you're unfamiliar with it, is a federal government program that requires drug manufacturers to provide outpatient drugs at significantly reduced rates to those facilities that qualify for the program. It was introduced in 1992 and then expanded in 2010 with the Affordable Care Act. Some questions that came up from the council beforehand was, will we partner with local community pharmacies and other pharmacies to support the program locally? And the obvious answer is absolutely. We've already done some calling to Mr. Larry Weber and Brendan Weber and got contracts in place with their agreements to move forward with that and to make sure that this program is solely separate from the FQHC Arthur Center, and it will not affect that in any way. So different programs can qualify at different times and make sure that you're good going forward. Each program is then re-evaluated on a yearly basis based on your cost report for indigent care. St. Mary's 2016 cost report showed that we had over $4.5 million in charity care to the community. So based on that cost report, we refiled an amendment with HRSA, who qualifies facilities to do 340B. Based on that, we qualified being a sole community provider, and we'll be working with outpatients in our area, in our cancer center, and our clinics that qualify, and provide outpatient services at a reduced rate and be able to continue our charity care that we're doing at the hospital. So we do have a handout for you if you'd like. It talks about these things. Do you have that already?
Been provided that.
Already got it. So basically I wanted to answer any further questions that you might have about the program or about St. Mary's in general.
I think you answered both questions I had, so I'll turn it over to the rest of the board if they have questions. Council?
I have a question.
Sure.
You said Weber Pharmacy was participating in this?
Yes, 3 locations.
At the 3 locations?
Yes, I talked to Brendan Weber. We're already partnered with Weber to do bedside delivery to the facility. Started earlier in the year. Mr. Weber also partners with the Arthur Center, I believe, to do prescriptions for them on an outpatient basis. And there is in no way any danger of him losing or a conflict of interest for those 2 facilities. He double-checked his contracts as well and got back to me and said he's very eager to get started with St. Mary's.
Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to be. Yes.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
We need to read it by title only.
Somebody.
Mayor, action is that the bill number is 2018-26.
26.
I'm not sure that it's on your tablet.
Okay.
I apologize for that. On the resolutions.
No, it's probably all me.
Bill number 2018-26, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a healthcare services agreement with SSM Health St. Mary Hospital, Audrain. I move for passage of bill number 2018-26.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Next item is the payment of the claims.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Nichols?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Next item is comments from the council. We've always started on the right, but let's start on the left and start with Dr. Shivers.
Well, first, I am really excited to have Ms. Briggs join us on the council. I've enjoyed working with her a little over a year, and now I'm excited to have another female on the board here. And just glad to see we had a full house. I wish we had more people come out to city council meetings on a regular basis to know what's going on and to share their opinions.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols?
Welcome aboard, Vicky. That's all I've got.
Mr. Williams?
Welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm glad you guys from the hospital didn't leave yet, because I wanted to say that since you guys have taken over, I've heard lots and lots of praise. So I appreciate everything you guys have done in the community. And, I see her out and about, and that's a huge thing in a community like this is knowing people. And so I really appreciate everything you guys are doing for the community. So.
And I get to go last.
No, he goes last.
You're last.
Well, this is exciting to be here, and I wish every meeting were this interesting, but I've been here for some of the other ones.
This is a
fun one. So it's nice to be here, and I'm not so sure, and I may be wrong, but I think this may be the first time there's been two women on the council at the same time. Do you know, Marcy? Yeah, I think so. So, yeah.
Mr. Slagle?
I have nothing else at this time, Your Honor.
Well, as mayor, I'd like to say I sat on the school board with Vicki for 3 years.
We had fun.
We had fun. So I know she can handle the deep. No question in mind. Thank you for being Mayor Pro Tem last year. You do a fine job. I don't know about you, but thanks for being the new Mayor Pro Tem. I look forward to that. And I agree with your comment about SSM. It is a positive for this community. And Mrs. Jacobs, you are out and about and showing your face everywhere, and that is a big deal.
I, for one, like the crosses also.
At this time, again, we will have public comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and hold your comments for 3 minutes. Maybe we're commented out. If that's the case, I move we adjourn into executive session pursuant to RISMO statutes Missouri 610-021 litigation.
Second.
On your next one,
Yes.
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 Yes.